it's Leah, and today's video is going to be just a little different. I know back in January, in one of our very first vlogs that we did, I promised to share this story with you then, and time has just gotten away from me. I've been busy, and I haven't had a chance to do that, but it's quiet in the house, except for dogs, and I thought, now's as good a time as any just to sit down and share with you. I want to share this with you because I feel like it's just a really important topic. I feel like there are a lot of young people out there that have problems, problems with their body image, with their self-esteem, and I just want to share this. So I hope I don't get too long-winded, and I hope you watch because I think it's important. Now, this isn't the first time I've shared this story. I have done interviews with Discovery Health. I've done interviews with CNN. I've done interviews with Good Housekeeping. I also shared my story and testified before the California State Senate in support of several cosmetic surgery bills that were on the floor. It's become a passion of mine to tell this story. I feel like this happened to me for a reason. Right? I mean, you could say, why me? Well, maybe God knew I would have the cojones to stand up and talk about it, because a lot of people don't. For me, I am not ashamed. I made the decision to do this, and whether it was right or wrong, it was my decision, and I'm not ashamed of that. What I am ashamed of, I didn't understand that there was a difference between cosmetic surgery and plastic surgery. Sounds like the same thing, right? Cosmetic surgeons, plastic surgeons, board certified plastic surgeons. There's a huge difference. Did you know that anybody with MD after his name, could be a dermatologist, could be a urologist, podiatrist, anybody with MD after their name can take as little as a weekend course and open their doors and do cosmetic surgery? That is astounding to me. And that's what I'm ashamed of, that I didn't take the time and do my homework and research this before I let somebody do this evasive procedure on me. So anyway, back in the early 90s, I had lost close to 130 pounds. I had kept it off for approximately 3 years. So I would be what you would consider a success story. I mean, I knew what had gotten me there. I knew how to keep it off. It had now become a part of my lifestyle. But like a lot of people, I still had body image problems. And I think a lot of that wasn't actually what my body looked like, but what my brain perceived my body to look like. Because all of my life I had struggled with my weight. I still saw that fat person in the mirror. And so when I was approached by somebody that worked for a local cosmetic surgeon, I think I was just ripe for the picking. Because I still had these visions that my hips were too big, that my legs were too big, that my stomach was sagging. And so this person kind of knew that she could get to me. And I didn't go for it right away. It, financially, it wasn't something that I could afford to do. It was nothing I had ever really considered doing before. And I had just met Wayne, who wasn't my husband yet. And we had just gotten engaged. And I mentioned it to him. I said, this girl keeps telling me what great things they could do for me. That they could tighten up my loose skin and they could, sculpt my hips the way I wanted them and all of this stuff. But, I'd never do it. We couldn't afford to do it. And he said, you know what, honey, I love you the way you are. But if it's something that you really want to do it. You know what? You deserve it. You've worked hard. Do it. And financially, he made that happen for me. So I made the decision. I was excited. I thought I can finally have the body that I've always dreamt about, that I would feel comfortable with in public. I could get into that bathing suit and feel like nobody was staring at me on the beach, or if they were staring, it would be for a whole different reason that whatever. But so I made the appointment, and I actually got a phone call prior to that consultation saying, you know what, we've had a cancellation. And can you come in tomorrow and we'll do the consult, we'll map everything out, and then we'll just go into surgery. And oh my gosh, it was like this whirlwind. Okay, let's rock and roll. And I was excited. And this particular doctor, I'd never met him before. He was a cosmetic surgeon. At the time, didn't know the difference. This was a gentleman that was an emergency room doctor. This ER doctor turned cosmetic surgeon is now about to cut into me. Well, that was the other thing. I was thinking my thighs and my hips. And when I got there, he kind of convinced me, oh no, we need to contour it, and we're going to go from your back and down to the back of your legs. Okay, fine, you're the doctor, you know what's best. So I went with it. He said, well, I like to do it in 2 different procedures, so we will do your backside first, and then in about 6 months, then we'll do your front side. So I said, okay, fine, let's do the backside. And in we went. So I had a pretty normal recovery, I guess. I was sore. The next day I was up walking and all of that. I looked like I had been beat with a baseball bat because you're pretty bruised. You're also wrapped in what they call compression garments so that you can't really tell what the results look like. And you've got a lot of swelling. And so it's really going to take months for you to see the full results. Was healing normally, would go in to the physician for post-op care, and he would take measurements, and at the time there was no change in my measurements. And he says, well, you still got a lot of swelling, and you know what, I had to work really hard. You had very fibrous tissue, and I think it's from all of your weight loss. So you've got a lot of swelling. It may take a little longer for things to resolve, for you to see the full results. Weeks and weeks went by. I would go in, we would measure, no change. To make a long story short, months go by. I had no change. So he had some convoluted story about, well, with the fibrous tissue, it was kind of like I don't know, some cock and bull story, period. but no change. So he said, well, you know what? When we do your next surgery, I've got this new procedure. I've got a new cannula that I've had some really good success with fibrous tissue like you have. And so what I would like to do is we'll use this new procedure and we will not charge you. And if you like the results, we will then do the backside again, and then we'll discuss, the payment at that time. So I thought, wow, okay, well, let's go. I didn't even think to question what this procedure was, because again, he obviously is a doctor. He obviously knows what he's doing, and he's had good results with this procedure. So it was now, I think the first surgery I had in April of 95, 6 months later, that I had the second surgery. So we went in for the second surgery, and I kind of pretty much knew the routine, what the recovery would be like and what to expect, except this time I was so flippin' out of it. I could not move. I couldn't even walk to the bathroom without Wayne holding me up, literally. I felt so weak. This was not like the first time. This is different. I don't know what's going on. I do not feel well. This went on for days. I would call him and say, look, you know what? I can't move. I can't get out of bed. I'm so weak. I feel like I'm going to pass out every time I stand up. And he says, well, come on in and we'll take a look. And so he sent me for some blood work. My blood results came back. I had lost so much blood from this procedure that I come to find out now that I'm probably lucky to live through it. So he never sent me to another doctor to see perhaps maybe I needed transfusion or anything. Oh no, you should start feeling better shortly. Just get up and start moving and all of that. And I would literally walk like 20 feet and just go, I'm going to pass out. I would go to my post-op appointments, and they would want me to stand up so they could take the after photos, and I couldn't even stand to take the photos. I couldn't stand long enough. I said, I'm going to pass out. You start getting that, like you're in a tunnel, like this is it, I'm going to pass out. I couldn't stand there. It was awful. And at this time I started then collecting fluid in my legs. My legs would fill with fluid to the point where when I walked, I could hear it sloshing. It sounded like carrying a bucket of water and you could hear it sloshing. You could literally hear it sloshing. So I would go to the doctor, back to this particular doctor that did the procedure. I said, look, I've got so much, my legs are so huge and there's so much fluid in it, I could hear it. And he, that's interesting. And he took a big syringe, I'll never forget, it was huge, a huge syringe, and he would pull the fluid out of my legs. Just tons, a lot of fluid out of both legs. And by the next day, it was back, and I would go in and he would pull it out, and then it started returning quicker each time. It was like I would go in the morning and by night it was full again. It got to the point where I would go 3 times a day to have him remove the fluid from my legs. And not knowing anything about what was happening to me, I just kept rolling with it because I didn't know. I was employed at the time, and I had been off of work during all of this time, where I was only supposed to be off work for a week. It had now been several weeks. And I thought, I have got to get this together. I've got to go back to work. Sorry. I really couldn't stand long enough to be in a shower because I would get lightheaded. So I decided to take a bath. You know, my body was still really dark from bruising. I assumed bruising because you do have a lot of bruising after these types of procedures. So my legs were especially dark. And so I got in the bathtub. I'll never forget it as long as I live. Excuse me. As I sat in the bathtub, my skin literally started to slough off my legs. It wasn't a bruise. The skin just literally started to separate and to fall off in the bathtub. And I was screaming for Wayne. I was like, oh my God. I started to just totally, worse than I am right now, have a nervous breakdown. I mean, this is just still like it was yesterday. And I remember screaming, I'm falling apart. I'm falling apart. Like my fancy tissue. So the next morning, this was the evening. Next morning, called this doctor again. Still going back to the same idiot. Yeah, I said it. And he basically just looked at my legs and said, that's amazing. And he proceeded to put Neosporin and wrap it in gauze and set me on my way. The fluid was still accumulating. I would still go back in a few times a day and get it sucked out. I finally did, I think a day or so later, decide I have to go back to work. So wrapped in gauze, wrapped in compression garments, my legs sloshing, I went back to work. And I would have to leave a couple of times during the day to go get the fluid removed from my legs. And I remember I was at work and I got a phone call from a local surgeon. And he said, hi, I guess we're gonna be putting some drains in your legs. And I said, what? Nobody's discussed anything with me. And he says, yeah, I got a call from Dr. Idiot, we'll call him. I'll call him that now. Dr. Idiot. And he wants me to put drains in your legs so that we can get the fluid out of there long enough for your legs to heal. I said, okay, here we go. So I left work, went to his office to show him my legs, and there was just this moment of silence. And then he looked at me and he said, you know, I could put drains in your legs, but that's not your problem. We need to go into surgery now. And we got to get this tissue. This black part that you see here, that's just dead tissue. We need to get it out of there immediately. And when he said now, he meant like now. I left his office, went over to the hospital, which was across the street, and we did surgery. And he explained to me that I know that when you started this journey, it was for cosmetic reasons, but at this point, we need to remove this tissue and you're going to have some pretty significant scarring. And I was just in shock. At this point, I didn't care. I was just like, well, we got to do what we got to do. And said, let's just do it. And literally the next day, when I woke up from the surgery, I had incisions in both of my legs. Oh, probably about that long. And I mean, literally all the way from one side, the inner side of my leg, all the way to the outer side of my leg. I don't even know how many sutures were in there. I really didn't look at it too much. So, got released from the hospital, went home. A few days after the surgery to remove this tissue, the sutures, or the staples, actually they were staples, he stapled it. The staples just started to fall out. I mean, they literally were just falling out. So I called him, the surgeon. Dr. Idiot is, we're not dealing with him right now. We went to his office and he said, well, we didn't get to viable tissue, so we're going to have to go back in, cut some more of this out, and unfortunately, you're going to have even larger scars. Well, at this point, it just doesn't matter, does it? Now it's become more of an issue of saving your legs. Forget about what they look like. So we went back into surgery. When I woke up this time, I looked and I not only had even larger incisions, I mean, I'm going to insert some pictures here that aren't going to be too pretty, but just so you have some kind of a reference point. Larger retention sutures, the only way I can describe it is like Frankenstein. So, I mean, the retention sutures are about this long, and they're going across the incision like this, and they have big rubber hoses on them, and it's just the most god-awful thing I've ever seen. And it was crazy. So I have these huge incisions, both legs, they look like twins, and there's drains. There's 3 drains in each leg, these big bulbous drains and these big retention sutures, and it was not pretty. So we go home. The sutures, the retention sutures that were placed to hold the incision together, were starting to pull through my skin. and for a lack of any better way to describe it, it was like pulling a thread through a stick of butter. It just was just pulling through my skin, which now I can't. I think this is where I'll insert the picture. So if you're at all squeamish, shut your eyes. Warning, warning, I'll put a big flashing red warning. Warning, warning, ugly picture. So, as you can see from the picture, not only were the sutures pulling through the skin, the staples falling out, the wound edges were turning black. It was just unbelievable. I really wasn't looking at it. I never looked at it. The surgeon had shown Wayne and my sister Laura how to care for the wounds, and I wasn't looking at it. I couldn't emotionally deal with it, which is pretty selfish of me to make somebody else look at it, but I wouldn't look at it. But I couldn't deal with it. And I remember now, this had gone on. It was now Christmas Eve, and I was just getting sicker and sicker, and the wounds were getting worse. The skin was turning black again. It was just going from bad to worse to disaster. And it was Christmas Eve, and I know that Wayne wanted to take me into the hospital, and I couldn't do it. My family had been through so much. And I wasn't going to ruin Christmas for them. So I promised him. I promised that I would get through Christmas Day. My stepson Joshua was 3 years old, and Christmas is a big deal. And I wasn't gonna blow it for him. So I promised. I said, we'll get through Christmas. We'll get through Christmas morning and dinner and all of that. And tomorrow night, Christmas Day, I promise I'll go to the hospital. We called the doctor, and of course, it's Christmas Day, and he's on vacation. God love him, he deserved it. So they called the surgeon on call, and he said to meet him at the emergency room. And I don't think he really wanted to get involved too much. This had turned into a really ugly situation that I don't think many people wanted to be involved with. But he admitted me to the hospital, and put me on some pretty heavy duty antibiotics, kept me pretty drugged up, and I was literally in the hospital for 2 weeks. I remember they said, okay, we're going to put you in the shower. I still couldn't stand, so they gave me a chair to sit on, because I was still so weak that I couldn't stand for long periods of time. And we want you to clean out the wound. We're going to give you one of those little water pick things, and we want you to clean it out. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't. I have not even looked at it really, other than, maybe a glance here or there. I haven't literally looked at this wound. And I remember sitting in the shower, holding this shower thing and cleaning out this wound and throwing up at the same time. It was the first time I had really allowed myself to see the full scope of what was happening. It made me sick to my stomach. When my surgeon returned from vacation, he says, this isn't going to heal. They had to debride it again. They had to cut more tissue out. And they said, we're just going to open it up and we're going to let it heal from the inside out. It has to granulate in because we can't close it. And by this time, it was such a huge wounds. This was both legs. It was both sides. That we can't close it. So this became my life for the next year. It took months for it to actually granulate in and to get to the point where it wasn't just this open gaping wound anymore. And even, Wayne and I got married on February 17th, and we didn't want to cancel the wedding. We'd put enough on hold. We didn't want to put our wedding on hold. So we got married on February 17th. Me in my white wedding dress with gaping wounds underneath, stuffed with gauze and dressing, and standing through the wedding ceremony was a challenge. And in fact, we considered getting a stool for me to sit on, but we just kind of shortened the length of the ceremony so that I didn't have to do that. And then we couldn't go away for our honeymoon because we couldn't get away from doctors long enough to go on a honeymoon. So we honeymooned in Lake Tahoe, which I guess is not a bad place to honeymoon if you got a honeymoon somewhere. That's where we were living at the time. So we were honeymooning at a hotel about 2 miles from our house, just so I could keep my doctor's appointments. And our honeymoon consisted of Wayne changing dressings and cleaning wounds, wound care. He's a wound care specialist now. We still haven't had a honeymoon. We will. We will one of these days, honey. I swear to you, we're going to go on a honeymoon. We deserve it. That's right. So it was an interesting wedding. And then, the remainder of the year was filled with doctors, and we got to the point where we started consulting with plastic surgeons to see if what they could do for these huge scars. And it wasn't even the fact that they were scars now, because who cared at this point? I had legs. And in fact, I was alive, and I found out after the fact, my surgeon had told me that in actuality what I had gangrene. I didn't know, I knew it was dead and dying tissue. I never put two and two together that I had gangrene, and I had about an 80% chance of not making it. Thank goodness I didn't know that until after I was kind of out of the woods. I was having a lot of pain because I had scar tissue, nerves trapped in scar tissue. So it was causing a lot of pain. Even though I didn't have, I have still to this day, no feeling topically from my abdomen all the way down to my calves on the front side of my body. I have no feeling whatsoever. And in fact, one morning I was drinking coffee and I set a coffee cup on my leg, and I didn't feel it, didn't think about it, and looked down, and I had this huge 3rd-degree burn on my leg. Oh my God, I didn't even feel it. So, but deep within my leg, I had the nerves were trapped in the scar tissue, so it was causing me pain. And so we wanted to see if we could get some scar revision to help with that. And I saw doctors all over the state of California, at UC Davis, at Sacramento, at Newport Beach. We saw lots of different doctors. And the funny thing was that every doctor I went to, you walk into a doctor's office, so what brings you in today? And I would start to tell my story, and you would just see their face change. And they would say, oh my God, you're her. And they had heard about my story. And so, the medical community is a very tight-knit community. And malpractice isn't something that you hear one doctor speak of very often. You don't ever hear a doctor say the word malpractice. And every doctor that I saw said, you need to sue this bastard. And I kept saying, I just need to heal first. I need to heal. And I can't think about that right now. So by the time I did get to the point where I thought I needed to do something legally, I contacted a lawyer in Sacramento, and he said, in the state of California, the statute of limitations is a year. And it's been over a year. He said, but I think your situation is so extreme that we should be able to get past that, and I think I can help you out. So not only did he help me with my legal situation, he also found, when he was looking for expert witnesses, he found the doctor that had actually invented this tool. Remember I said he had the cosmetic surgeon had a new procedure that he'd been having some really good results with. Well, the procedure that he used on me, it was a cannula called a pickle fork. Yeah, and it's what it says it is. It's a pickle fork. It looks like a pickle fork. It's a cannula, kind of V-shaped with a blade in between here. And it's meant to cut through fibrous tissue. And so when my attorney contacted this physician that had invented this tool, we found out that the tool that he used was not in actuality the pickle fork, but a knockoff pickle fork. Because the pickle fork actually has a sheath on it that when not in use, the sheath comes down, and so it's not cutting through anything when it's not in use. And so it protects you, and it's only supposed to be used in small areas of fibrous tissue. Well, the pickle fork knockoff that the physician used on me, turns out he had never used before. He hadn't had good success with it because he had never used it before. I was his guinea pig. And this pickle fork that he used didn't have that sheath to cover the blade. The blade was exposed the entire time. So in essence, he cut everything from my abdomen down to my calves with this blade, thus destroying my vascular system, my lymphatics. I am truly lucky to be alive. That's why I had lost so much blood. That's why I had these big giant seromas that kept collecting fluid because he had totally detached everything. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not speaking in doctorese, I don't know, but he pretty much destroyed my entire vascular and lymphatic system. And in fact, this doctor, and I'll say his name because he is an angel on earth. And I believe he has since passed away. But his name was Dr. Fred Grazier. And he is an angel. He's an angel. But he said this was the absolute worst case that he had ever seen where the patient had actually lived. So there were cases worse than mine, but those people weren't as lucky as I was. So, you know, he was my expert witness in my lawsuit. And also he then said, you know, after reviewing your file, I think I can help you with your scar revisions. I had talked to so many plastic surgeons all over the state of California that had said, nope, can't do it, can't be done. We can't help you. And Dr. Grazier was the only one that said, you know what, I really think I can help you. So he took my case, and he took it with the contingency, you know, no money up front. Once my lawsuit was settled, I would be able to pay him back at that time. I mean, everybody thought for sure, you know, this was a slam dunk thing. There was no way I wouldn't win this case. Well, turns out I didn't, but that's another story. Actually, I had signed an arbitration agreement, so I didn't get my day in court. I had to go before an arbitration board. And in my deposition, I said that a home health nurse had said to me that he shouldn't have done that to you. And so the gentleman that was the head of the arbitration committee felt that at that point that should have put me on notice, and that the statute of limitations would start to run at that point. They didn't seem to care that I was on heavy duty pain medication. I was on antidepressants, and I was not in my right mind. But at that point, they felt like I should have pursued this matter legally. And I was just wanting to heal. That's all. I just wanted to heal. So they dismissed my case, and he actually said, I am not saying this man wasn't negligent. Oh yeah, he was extremely negligent. But we have to follow the letter of the law. And so this case is dismissed. Because I signed an arbitration agreement, I couldn't appeal. That was it. I walked out. I was done. I had nothing. And in the meantime, Dr. Grazier had done surgery, had done scar revision surgery. It wasn't just him, I had 2 plastic surgeons in that surgery. I had 2 vascular surgeons in that surgery, not to mention a surgical suite of people, anesthesiologists. The bills were insurmountable. They were just beyond crazy. And I had no way to pay it because I had lost this case. So I went back to Dr. Grazier, just kind of said, I'm sorry, can we make payment arrangements? I mean, I had all of these bills. And he looked at me and he said, you don't owe me a dime. He said, you've been through enough. That's why he's my angel. I mean, I was just speechless. And I said, I couldn't begin to thank him enough. But there were other people as well. There were other doctors, there were other facilities, there were physical therapists, there were, you name it, I owed everybody. And he said, you don't owe them either. And he took care of the whole thing. So there are angels on earth. Anyway, sorry. That surgery, the surgery did help. It did what it was supposed to do. I still have huge scars. I don't care. I embrace them. They make me who I am. It helped relieve the pain. And I was supposed to have more surgeries, which Dr. Grazier, again, was going to do for free because he felt very strongly that I had been wronged and he wanted to make it right. So, but I just felt like I'd been through enough. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. I was out of pain, and I'd had enough. I didn't want to go through it anymore. So I guess the moral of the story, and why I tell this story, is because I'm not anti-cosmetic surgery. I'm not anti-plastic surgery. What I want people to understand is that it's important to do your homework, to ask questions, to research your doctors, to choose a board-certified plastic surgeon. You know what? Love your body the way you are. God made you. He gave you a unique you. Love yourself. Just embrace the person that you are. And if you do decide to have some form of surgery, just know what you're getting into. Just, talk about it. Talk to your doctor. Ask questions. Ask how many procedures they've done. Ask if they've had complications. What kind of complications. Make sure they have privileges at a hospital. Just do your homework. Do your homework. Love yourself. Love your body. Embrace the uniqueness that is you. And that's it. That's all I have. I will be back with my my vlogs where I'm a little more lighthearted than this. I promise. I promise. I want to say I love you all. Take care. And till next time. Bye-bye.